welcome, Teresa. I'm so glad that you're here.
It's great to be here. Thank you so much for having me on, Kathi.
Absolutely. So let's talk about your evolution as a business owner and as an influencer in the marketing industry. Tell me about your past, Teresa. How did you get to where you are right now?
Well, I'd love to tell you a beautiful linear process, all planned out, anything but. And, you know, I think that's really the entrepreneurial journey for so many people. You know, it really does come from leaning in. You know, if we do what is the next most logical step for us, then life evolves, you know, and when we let life evolve, it's amazing where the current of our own life will bring us to, you know. I actually originally started out working in the oil and gas industry in Canada. I couldn't have conceived the life I'm living now 20 years ago. Like I couldn't have dreamed it, you know, couldn't have dreamed that big. And yet when you sort of surrender to the direction your life is taking you, it's pretty amazing where life will bring you.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And, you know, I like to say water over a rock, like trying to take the path that you tend to be led to, as opposed to trying to fight your way into where you think you're going to go. Don't you think that helps a lot more to
very
go
much
that way?
You know, it's, you know, there is a higher wisdom out there that takes you where you need to go, whether you want to go or not, you know?
Yeah, kicking and screaming, or are you just going to go with the flow, right?
Yeah.
Go downstream. So I know that the Evolutionary Business Council, which we will affectionately call the EBC, started as a mastermind. Is that how it came about? You were with like-minded entrepreneurs, and tell me about that story.
Yeah, it's an interesting evolution in and of itself. You know, the EBC was originally a brainchild that came out of a big event that I had done in Calgary. I had invited a lot of the people I like to mastermind with, a lot of the top speakers in North America. And I thought it'd be really fun after the event to just bring everyone up to the mountains for a weekend and just hang out and mastermind together, you know. And so the night after the event ended, we're all sitting in this beautiful condo in Banff, and out of my mouth pops, someday when I'm influential enough, I'd love to start a community of highly influential people that are all about changing the world. And they all started laughing. And I'm sitting there like, I just told you guys my dream and you're laughing at me. And Daniel Gutierrez looks at me. Of course, he's one of the top Latino speakers in the world. And he looks at me and says, wait a minute, Teresa, you were just on stage 6 hours ago telling people to notice when they say someday I will, and inviting them to make that today. And then Jennifer Huff turns to me and says, so when are you going to do that, Teresa? And that was actually the moment the EBC was born. And it was actually kind of an experiment because I didn't set it up as the usual advanced mastermind. I kind of asked the question of what if we treated influence like it was a currency? And built a funnel, like a marketing funnel, to pull the most influential people toward us. And it was pretty amazing how it worked initially.
That's incredible. And how many years ago is that?
That's 12 years ago now, and it's evolved significantly since.
Yeah, and it's a fantastic organization. I enjoy it myself. So you were in the oil and gas industry, and then were you doing marketing in that industry? Is that how that happened, or did you go into marketing from that?
I was mostly leading big change initiatives in the industry. So I had a lot of opportunity to really understand what creates change and what creates influence. I was doing a lot of like management system work. And it was kind of fascinating. I started doing a lot of self-help work that had me really doing a lot of inquiry, you know. Mm-hmm. In fact, I can remember a specific moment where I was in the middle of what I now affectionately call my really bad year. You know, I had a year where in the first 6 months of that year, my father had passed away. The business I had started had failed. My marriage had ended. My health was in a tailspin, you know, and all I could remember at that time was how deeply unhappy I was. I had all the outward trappings of success, like the 6-figure income, the nice car. And I remember this one night, I'm sitting in the bathroom of my new, you know, post-marriage breakup condo, and I'm surrounded by tools because I've always been a renovator, and this bathroom is going to be my latest project, you know. And I'm literally bathed in my own tears because the only thought in my head was, it's me that needs renovating. You know, 'cause I remember looking back over my life and I couldn't honestly remember the last time that I was tuned in, turned on, happy, you know, but it was such a powerful moment. I can laugh thinking about it now because it was the turning point. You know, it was the point at which I got serious about doing my own work, and I started taking every self-help course under the sun. I got a lot more serious about my yoga and my health. And within a few years of that time, my life had radically shifted and I wouldn't have even have recognized myself.
It's interesting. So sometimes it takes a massive amount of trauma before we're ready to make that shift, or before it's like, boom, 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 boom. Okay, maybe we do need to do something in inner work.
Yeah.
Maybe we
Yeah.
shouldn't just be busy and we should go inside and, slow down for a minute. I think we've all had that as entrepreneurs. Well, the reason that think we become entrepreneurs, don't you think it's because you get that little calling that's like, I can do something more with this, and the universe just knocks us on our side or knocks us off our stool and says, yeah, maybe you should pay attention to that. So it sounds like that's what happened to you, and it's a common phenomenon. But what's uncommon about you is how massively you've been able to impact people. So where did the book come in then after this? Because you have a #1 bestseller in 7 countries. Let's talk about the book a little bit.
Yeah, well, it was probably 5 or 6 years, maybe 7 years after that time that I first wrote Mass Influence. I'd been working in the realm of influence for a while, and I realized I really do need to write a book to help the change agents of the world understand that becoming influential is not only easy, it's important, because there's a lot of good people out there with a lot of negative self-talk, like a lot of inner dialogue that stops them from stepping into their own influence, like they think, nobody's going to listen to them anyway, or they're not important enough, or only the arrogant would want to be influential. We all have 1,000 things we tell ourselves. The reality is the only people that don't have inner dialogue that stops them from stepping into influence in their own leadership tend to be sociopaths, which is a whole other conversation, right? Good people tend to stop themselves, right? So when you see a really good leader who's really about changing the world, they've had to do a lot of work to overcome all of that self-doubt that enabled them to become the leader that they are today.
I agree. And what would you recommend to someone as like step 1? I don't feel good enough. They're saying, I know I have this message. I don't feel good enough. I don't think that it's going to be accepted. What would be the first step that you would advise them to do?
Well, the first thing is to note that all human beings have that, right? Like research now shows that we first start developing our most significant negative self-beliefs around the age of 2 when we're first learning languages.
Wow.
So when we're in our very first failures in our life, we start telling our stuff to make sense of those failures, right? I'm too short, I'm too tall, I'm too dumb, I'm too smart, I'm not good at speaking, nobody's going to listen to me, nobody loves me. There'll be something we would have said to ourselves in those early ages. And those messages that we start giving ourselves tend to become repetitive patterns that we keep living into as we get older and as we become adults. So step 1 is to try and get a handle on what are the most common things you tell yourselves in the moments where you really feel called to step up and lead, or really called to push yourself to play a bigger game. What is it, that dominant thought that stops you? And see if you can go back and remember some of the first failures of your life when you first started telling yourself that, because it probably is a repetitive pattern. The same thing is probably stopping you everywhere. And if you can go back and make friends with that little inner child that created that 2 or 3-year-old version of you that started first creating that messaging for you, and give that inner child a new job to cheer you on instead of to warn you all the time, that's the thing that's really going to start turning the tables. We do a lot of inner child work in the Evolutionary Business Council, especially in some of our more advanced programs, because it's a very quick route to get after some of that negative self-talk that we created on ourselves.
Yeah, that's really good advice. And we all have that. We all have some of it, and some of this more than others. So I think, the great piece of advice is if you do find yourself stuck, step back and see that. I think that's great advice. And once you recognize that self pattern, what would you say is the way to eliminate it? and move forward.
Well, the big thing is, and I borrow this from Jennifer Huff's work with permission, to give your inner child a new job. You know, so when you start making friends with your inner child, you know, you want to lovingly comfort that inner child and tell them that it's not their job to ring the alarm bell anymore. It's not the job to go around warning you all the time. Let your inner child be in charge of fun and play and cheering you on the adventure, you know, and let the adult you, let the higher consciousness, the part of you that's tuned into source and tapped into your own soul, you know, let that part of you decide whether something's risky or something needs to be avoided, not the 2-year-old version of you that you don't want to be driving the bus, you know.
Yeah, having them be in charge of play is a wonderful thing. I love that whole concept. For sure.
Very helpful.
So let's talk. I love the Evolutionary Business Council. Let's talk a little bit more about that membership and how it all came about. So all your friends at the mastermind, they said, well, start. And did they say, let's do it?
Yeah, actually they did. That group of people became the first advisory board for the Evolutionary Business Council, which is very cool. We spent the whole weekend dreaming and envisioning what the EBC might become. And they've actually been my greatest supporters on the road ever since as well. You know, it's pretty incredible when you have a group of influential change agents at your back. It's pretty hard to fail when you've got a community like the Evolutionary Business Council around you, because they're pretty amazing individuals.
Yeah, all sorts of amazing people. And, you know I had joined earlier this year, and there are several what we call deep dive training sessions that are coming up. And I know that there's one coming in September that's about podcasting. So
I know, yes. We always do our deep dive retreats on the topics of influence, impact, or profit. Because we believe those are the 3 pillars that every change agent, every entrepreneur that's about creating a more conscious, sustainable world needs. So the September one is our influence deep dive, and we're diving deep in the topic of how do you build a blockbuster show. So we're going to be focusing on podcasting, but a lot of the concepts that we'll be teaching and talking about could also apply to an online television show, or even a docuality type show that you might apply to have covered on Netflix or something like that. We're really diving deep in the topics of how do you create a profitable model for your show? How do you be an awesome show host? How do you create an influential business model? And more importantly, how do you create profit from a show? We'll be talking a lot about sponsorship with the queen of sponsorship herself, Charmaine Hammond, who's got one of the most advanced conversations around sponsorship in our industry. So it's going to be a really fun 3 days where we really, you know, roll up our sleeves and get stuff done on your business.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And for those of you who are interested in looking at the EBC or seeing if it's a good fit, there is an application process, and we'll put links below so that you can check that out. So I'm so intrigued. Okay, so you're living the life of having a retreat in Costa Rica, and I'm so happy for you for that. I love Costa Rica. I've been there 4 times already. Keep going back. So let's talk about your retreat just for a minute.
Yeah.
Now you're living there full time, right?
Yes, I do believe in, you know, really getting intentional about designing the life you want to live, you know. So Pam Bain and myself came down here to found a conscious, sustainable community, which we call Vista Mundo. And our first little retreat center has now opened. We've got about half the lots in the community have sold. We're working with a developer, Mark Kopel, who's he's a retired buffalo farmer from the US, really lovely individual. Yeah. And we're really just having fun with it. We're planting a food forest. Every day we go out and plant more flowers or trees, and just really being in alignment with a community that's loving and supporting of each other, and founded on the principles of sustainability. So, you know, if that's something that interests you, feel free to reach out. I'd love to have a conversation.
That's so funny. A buffalo farmer, huh?
Yeah. Everyone here calls him Doc Buffalo, which he's actually a retired veterinarian, but owned a buffalo farm in the States, and just a really, really lovely individual. He's reserved the whole development for our people. So
I love it. There's nothing better than putting my hands in the dirt. I just love the fact that you can go out and grow things and, start things from scratch. And, Costa Rica is so fertile and it's such an amazing place to grow anything, pretty much anything
Yeah.
you grow there, right?
Yeah, gardening is mostly an exercise in beating back the jungle here. It's amazing how fast stuff grows.
Absolutely, absolutely. So if you had to do it all over again, is there anything that you would swap out with your life or anything at all?
You know, I've loved every failure and every success. I think in life we need our failures. We need those moments where things aren't working. And I really do believe in the expression, good is the enemy of the great. If your life is all good, you never seek or strive for anything better. You never turn yourself around and say, okay, wait a second, that didn't work. What next? So I actually don't think I would trade a single failure. I've had lots of them, big external failures that people saw, but I've also had internal failures where, like, just in terms of my own commitment to my own self-work, just wasn't in alignment, or, I behaved in a way that I just wasn't me,
Right.
and but I do think all of that becomes sort of the mosaic of who we are. And as human beings, we become perfect in all our imperfection. So truthfully, I wouldn't trade a thing. I've loved every moment of it, including the worst ones.
Yeah, that's a really good answer. And I totally agree that through challenge comes triumph. I mean, you don't stretch, you don't imagine. If it's all complacency and everything's just perfect, then what is that anyhow? Perfection is overrated. When I was writing my first book, that was my mantra. Perfection is overrated and simply not worth it. Striving for that is just crazy in the making anyhow. What is the best piece of advice that anyone's ever given you that you think of a lot or just keeps popping into your head?
I love what Jennifer Hough says. Sheryl Sandberg's now written a book with this title, but I think Jennifer Hough was the first that said it to me many, many years before Sheryl Sandberg was even known as an individual, which is lean in. I think just continuing to lean in the direction of your passion, and allowing yourself, because as you lean in, you can see more. It's sort of like leaning around the corner, suddenly a whole new vista is available to you. And I think living life that way of, if you're not sure where you're going next, that's okay. Just lean into whatever feels like it might be the right next direction for you. And I think that's the best advice I've ever been given, since many years. I've now become really good friends with Jennifer Hough, stemmed out of originally just following some of her teachings. And I think that's the best piece of guidance anyone's ever given me.
I love that. Lean in. I will also put that right here. I think that's good because you'll know, I think you'll get more insight. That's really good advice. Yeah. So, okay. So you're already a #1 best-selling author. If you were going to write another book, unless you are, maybe, what do you?
I'm always writing. Yes, I should.
What's your next book? We want to be the first to know.
I think my next book is going to be about not just influence, but influence and profit and how they play together to create impact, because you often see people who are awesome at one superpower and not the other. There are people who are highly profitable, and then they use their profit to generate influence. They use their monetary proof to generate a certain amount of social proof, but they're not really the geniuses at influence that they could be. And then you see people who are highly influential. They understand the concept of social proof like nothing else, and they use their influence, and they tend to generate a little bit of profit from their influence. But there's not that many people you see that have the two superpowers combined, And the key element that ties the two together is really how good are you at getting people to take action? Because until people take action, you haven't really influenced them. You've just given them insight, but they haven't changed anything. They haven't changed their lives, right? And until you get people to take action, there is no profit in your business. You've given them good insight, but they will not pull out their credit card if they're not in action, right? And so when you master that, in the Evolutionary Business Council, we call that distinction mobilization. When you master the ability to mobilize your following, and actually use that to generate amazing profit and use the profit to support the influence you're having. The force you can have in the world, the change you can create in people's lives, the impact you can have is phenomenal. So I think that's going to be my next book. I'm going to talk about how those three elements play together, you know, and how to understand the nuances of how they operate.
I love that. I'm looking forward to that one. That'll be impactful for everybody, of course.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I agree. There's a lot of people who have the influence, but they just don't have the money behind them. Or if they have the money behind them, they're not necessarily influencing the way that could be to the highest and best. So
yeah.
Okay, so I know we have a valuable free resource that people can access down below this podcast. What is it that you are offering, Teresa?
If you want to actually practice your influence skills, you can come to our 30-day influence challenge. So if you go to massinfluencethebook.com, we're now actually giving the digital versions of my book away for free to celebrate its 7th year anniversary on the bestseller list. Yeah, we've been in and out of the #1 spot in small business marketing for over 7 years now. So to celebrate that, the digital version of the book is complimentary on most of the sites, Kobo, iTunes, or iBooks, Kindle. Kindle keeps trying to push it back up. We have to keep bugging them. So depending on when you happen to be, if you're listening to the recording of this, when you happen to be checking, you might have to let us know. But we do give the digital version away complimentary. And then you can sign up for our 30-day influence challenge, which is just 30 days of real quick exercises you can do. They're just little mini emails we send you every day where you do this little 2-minute thing every day and you build your habits of becoming influential by doing the actions that highly influential people tend to do.
Yeah, that's a phenomenal resource. And it does take 4 to 6 weeks for us to change our habits. So 30 days is right spot on for everybody. So I would welcome everybody that's listening to go ahead and start that 30-day challenge. If you really feel like you want to be influential, you want to make an impact, if you know that you have something that will benefit the world towards better, go ahead and take the challenge for sure. And start, walk your talk, kids, do it. That's what I say. Okay, is there anything that I should have asked you that I didn't? Anything on your mind that we want to talk about?
I think you covered it all. It's just been a joy to be here, Kathi. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. It's so good to connect. And I'm loving the EBC. Everybody check it out below, check the links. And, I am just so thrilled that you're living your dream in Costa Rica. And hopefully one of these days I will be down and see all the things that you've grown and flourished.
Please come on down. We'd love to see you.
Absolutely. Take care. And thank you so much for your time and good Wi-Fi and good blessings to you and happy fall. Everybody check out the EBC deep dive in September.
Thanks for having me on, Kathi.
Thank you. Take care. Hey, thanks for listening to this podcast. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you want to hear more, feel free to subscribe on the platform of your choice. Also, if you feel so inclined, I would truly appreciate a good rating from you to me. Have a stellar day.